I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Fairly short, simple agenda. First order of business be approved the minutes from last week, September 7th.
I'll make that motion.
Tim's moved.
I'll second.
Bob seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nothing on the consent agenda, no miscellaneous motions.
Oh, I do have miscellaneous motions.
Okay, we do have a
Behind
miscellaneous.
this morning, because we have this in.
No, you're fine. Uh-oh.
Mixed up motions.
You know, this kind of jarred my thinking a little bit. This is a minor deal. Sometimes we're brought things like the day of to where it requires some timely discussion and timely thinking. So I'm all in favor of, if we run across things like that, of tabling it till after lunch or something, coming back and actually discussing it and hashing it out instead of, oh, we gotta hurry up and decide because the next person's coming in at 9:45 or whatever it is. So I'm just throwing that idea out there. I'm just throwing it out there.
We used to, when we kind of had a policy among the commission and basically everyone else, and we had made a decision, if you didn't have it into our books by Thursday night so that it can be presented to us by Friday, we would not act on it unless it was absolutely emergency. Because, you know, people being late, that's not our problem.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I get that too, but still, even if it were at the books come Thursday, I mean, some of them could require some.
But that gave us the opportunity on Friday, if we had questions, to go talk to those people and ask them what's going on.
So we still had to hash out between the five of us too.
Right, but I mean, but at least we had an opportunity, we had questions, a personal question about this, I could go talk to Tom and say, okay, tell me about this, and then I would understand it. And then when it came time to the meeting, I know where I'd be. But you're right, I don't think we ought to accept anything, boom.
Yeah.
Basically, almost where we have time to read it.
Pretty cut and dry here. Nothing
Yes,
really discussed.
this is a little bit different.
We had that discussion just on the first year or two I came on.
Yeah.
About, I remember what Bob said. You know, everything had to be in by Thursday night, unless it's something very exceptional.
Yeah.
That we didn't take long to get away from.
So, based upon the recommendation of the copy of the county sheriff, move to authorize and direct the chairman to sign Coffee County payroll notice for Rachel Hale, Sheriff's Office, part-time deputy sheriff classification, 40-4, the wage $20.18, effective 9/8/21.
You know, it said it's part-time. I wonder what the expected hours are.
And I don't know.
I would anticipate, I would expect it to be below 1,000 hours, but you have the scale.
Would you be below 30 a week if it was
If it's
part-time?
gonna be below 1,000 a year, you're gonna take benefits. So that's only 20 hours a week.
So, you want to table it and ask some questions?
Well, I
Again,
think-
study session.
To me, we need clarification on the part-time.
Have him come down here later if you will, please. We'll just table all that. We'll just table all this.
And that's the way the rules used to be. Anything over 1,000, you've got to be responsible.
We can ask him a couple of questions. How's that?
to my knowledge, that hasn't changed.
So, Bobby, I'm assuming you're here for Heidi, correct?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
The resolution you see in front of you is just approval of the recommendation about the planning board to make updates to the zoning regulations. And those particular changes were updates on the names included within the regulations, updates to signage, language regarding signage, which was sent down from the state. Nothing drastic, just updates to dates and names. And in addition to approving the resolution, I would ask that the county clerk be able to consider attending the meeting on Wednesday night
This
to
Wednesday?
swear in. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because she had told me the 22nd. There's this,
Yes.
okay, I will be there.
Thank you. Swear in the new members.
What meeting are we talking about?
Planning and zoning.
Okay.
And those were the changes that were made on the regs. We're deleting members who are no longer part of the board and adding those members who were recently appointed by the commissioners.
It seems like we always come back to Wade. Has Wade looked at this?
He's had it for a while. Yes, sir.
I'm sure the groundwork's been done, so.
Yes, sir.
No major changes, just updating everything about all we're doing.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I didn't see anything in major.
On that note, we're taking I think I've discussed this with a few of the commissioners, but we're taking the approach to not make any drastic changes regarding planning and zoning, to really try to get the feet back under the planning and zoning board and allow them to make the best decisions they can make moving forward. So unless there's a really extraordinary situation, there won't be any changes to the zoning regs.
I don't.
I'll move that we accept the resolution 683-B, approve it.
Is that good enough for you, Ange? We'll just use the
You might go
verbiage.
and read it, the resolution approving.
Resolution approving and adopting by referring subdivision regulations of Coffee County, Kansas.
Jesse's moved,
I'll second that.
Bob seconded. And so you're on that. as
Yes.
Well, so you're in tune to all this. as
I
well.
missed the last meeting and I don't know if this was discussed at the last meeting. They moved the day on me. So I
Okay,
think they had a day later, a day earlier, and I had conflicting schedule, so.
but you have some knowledge of it.
Yes.
You're comfortable, so. Any further discussion? Jesse's moved, Bob seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye, motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom is on it. and look it
Build a
over.
bridge, yes.
It's in the files on the phone.
See, it's cheap and easy to build a bridge.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Did I see your email when he went coming in?
So he just didn't have anything for the books that he showed me. He said he doesn't have a motion or anything.
So that's that?
Yeah.
Didn't say he wanted to come to that.
Okay, all right.
He just didn't want to do the work.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah,
See
okay.
that. That
Are you signing the resolution?
I sure can.
Oh, is that one?
That's the first one. I'll make you.
I don't know why we're still using the 40-4.
So we are
That would be it.
way ahead of schedule.
I can give him a call to make sure he's still planning on coming.
Yeah, you might just text him or something, I know we're running ahead.
He's gonna be here now, so he'll be in here in a minute.
Okay. Thank you.
If you're a postal worker, you don't have to. Or if you're in one of the staff. You agree? You said it'd be checked.
Said Wayne is closed.
He just walked by. About ready to
Last invoice to Evergy, he might, I'm not sure what it's for.
Around $1,000.
It's $1,000 each. I didn't see an exclamation on that. I went ahead and signed it because I'm sure with working with them, probably after, but there wasn't a document to explain it completely.
No, I can turn my phone off even. My grandson's one would call.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
It's, the bit, well,
Special.
Invoice up good.
oh, that's for, the, emergency service building. I think they pay them in advance.
Instructions.
And like they pay them $1,000, yeah, because the bill was 300, but isn't that correct, Angie? Emergency service building, we're paying them so much at a time in advance or something.
Yeah, we do, what we do for all of those.
Yeah.
I went ahead and initially, I'm sure it was correct, but even if
That's what it is.
Because of their rebate.
there's this too.
Good morning. Went to the state fair, got to see the salt mines again.
Oh, did you?
Up there by Hutch. Had a pretty big operation.
Yeah. I have yet to ever tour one of them.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot.
They got a lot of events going on down there. They even got like lights for Christmas and all that sort of thing. They got running events and all that down at the salt mines.
They say that salt mine deal is quite an experience to go through. So that's
Quite the deal. Okay, well, no motions this time. So, but we have construction zone and also we've had some call outs. So here last Saturday, we had a bridge on 12th Road between F and G. Guardrail was damaged. We're gonna be looking at that to see what it would take to repair. And then Sunday, we had a stop sign down at Fauna and 16th. So those were the call outs. Otherwise, our scheduled work is in the construction zone and go from there. One, I have a question, if you guys can help me out, I've been visiting with Angie just a little bit here too. And so one is on your motion that y'all had at the end of August, is we're trying to fill out time cards. This is for us to be able to fill out time cards and Andy to be able to pay according to policies and motions and different things. So this will be on that COVID leave. So if they've already had, just to summarize just a little bit, if they've already had or utilized the 80 hours, and it's my understanding, not only 80 hours this year, but also last year, so they've already, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you have intent for something else, let me know. But if they've already used the 80 hours or up to the 80 hours, if they haven't, then we'd basically be able to pay them up to 80 hours. Then the next one is if they have contacted it from work, they would get 60/40. Well, now the question is, how do you determine if they contacted it from work? We have nothing in place to make that determination. How do you say you contacted it from work? So we're gonna have to be turning in time cards here next week. Angie's gonna have to be able to code them to say, did they meet that criteria or not? And so I'm asking at this point, how do we do it?
And to me, it's probably a very valid question.
I hope.
Almost got to leave it up, almost got to leave it up to the employee for his best estimate to where he did contact them.
Well, it's automatically gonna be on the job. I mean,
Wouldn't the health
Yeah,
department have the history of that person when they do the,
You have to visit with Lindsay, I don't know.
I mean, when they do the checks for the quarantines and those, wouldn't they basically know where it came from?
I would say we'd have to visit with Lindsay to see if she can give us that information. I don't know. I have to have that information for Angie, or otherwise it's just put on their COVID leave 60/40. Because I have no way to say it's not. Because the only thing I can take is from an employee at this point. So it leaves that, I mean, we are getting a same form that we got last year when it's basically leaving them or saying that they are excused from work because they have been quarantined or told to stay home because they had it or their family or something.
Is that a question the health department answered or asked?
they're only doing A/B quarantine, so like husband and wife or husband and child. If the child comes down with it, they're the only, I mean, that's the way I understand it right now.
Yeah.
But
Mine is, I mean, with the way the motion's set up, if they basically have contacted it from work, then they would be covered 60/40. Mine is, I don't have anything that says it was contacted from work.
I guess the question is, did we have an employee who had it that they were
I got at least 4 of them are in this.
connected to
I have 4 of them at least at this point that,
in that crew?
no, not necessarily that crew. Not necessarily that crew, Bob. It's
Well,
just in the
That
department.
didn't-
But I'm sure I'm not the only one in the whole county that's asking this question.
That didn't simplify it, then, did it?
No, I'm sure I'm not the only one that's asking this question. So we're trying to fill out time cards. I think we have them in here the first or Monday or something like that. So as we're trying to fill out time cards and be able to validate their time according to policy, if you're saying the health department needs to provide a note, then I'm gonna have to have a note. If you're saying no, it's up to the employee. And you have a.
To me, it don't matter what department, I mean, it's a question we need to answer.
We gotta have a response to it.
Exactly, so.
What's the point
well,
of
we gotta have a
origin?
solution.
Well, a response and solution, yeah.
Here's the old motion. So it's really kind of where's the point of origin? And what do we do to document it? Do we document it? How do we turn in our time cards?
Maybe we need to have Lindsay involved in this discussion to see what questions they're asking. Do they ask, do they think they received it at work
Yeah.
or they received it on another event?
I don't
I mean,
know.
I mean, I can say if they went to a football game or they went to something, or they went here, went there and 5 days, something like that, they started coming down with a
Yeah.
a sickness, I would venture to say it was probably contracted outside of work.
You know, it's just like me, and how many places I'm at.
Right.
I have nowhere to tell you.
Can't pinpoint.
I can't pinpoint where I got it at.
I couldn't either when I got mine, but I go with the statement Don made that, you know, you have to trust employees, say,
And that,
That is,
I'm not too sure there's a direct answer to it.
there's not.
Well, I mean, we're gonna have to make it black and white, it is gray. I would just say, I would maybe throw out the, regardless of where it was contracted, now that we're coming down to this issue of uncertainty, we're gonna have to make a motion regardless of contact origin or whatever, if somebody comes down and is tested positive.
I don't know if they're necessarily tested positive.
Are you talking one or are you talking all four?
Well, I have 4 of them that are kind of in that same scenario, but really the question is what Angie needs to be able to fill out time cards.
Okay, we understand that.
That's where it's at. So if I'm turning in time cards, she needs to have enough information to say that it's valid to pay. And so I'm trying to get her the information that she can make that
Right
determination.
there might be our legal opinion right there.
Some have used up their 2 weeks previous.
Most of them have.
Too bad.
Most of them have.
Yeah. Probably wasn't completely thought through on when we said that, I guess.
Lindsay's busy right now, so. she'll come when she
Yeah,
can.
maybe Lee,
But
Lee has some legal on that.
Wade, we got time cards that are needing to be processed. And prior to motion was, if it can be determined if the COVID was captured on the job, it would be a 60-40 split. If it was contracted outside of work, then they would be no pay or we use vacation pay. How, and this has been brought up, how do we dictate? We don't want to dictate, but how do we
know?
document it.
how do we?
I don't know if you could ever tell.
So do we need to change the wording in the motion or change that motion to COVID period, 60-40 split regardless?
I think it needs to probably be looked into. I don't have an answer just off the top of my head because I don't think it's as simple as you just have to establish what you want the county policy to be. But I don't think if each one of us end up with COVID, can we say definitively that we contracted COVID from sitting next to each other, from being in this room? It could have been something we were asymptomatic and then we came in. You could have been, who knows where, could have been at the Chiefs game. And I don't.
I guess the issue is that we've got a couple, 2 or 3 situations and we need to know for payroll.
Sure.
Well, as an employer, I'm looking at that point, and we're in what I call uncertain times, no matter what side of the box you want to look on.
Yeah.
I'm all in favor of, if you've already had to use it 2 weeks, and it don't matter where you got it, 60-40, but that's what I'm just throwing that out.
Oh,
I mean, just because you just
I think we are too.
at that point.
And that'll make it simpler for all
Yeah.
department heads and absolutely make it simpler for Angie and Denise.
Now the
Just make it
question,
60-40.
now the question that's gonna come up is, have we had employees that said they contracted it, received it off employment, and used their vacation?
That's history.
We got-
This would be from this day. from
Right,
day forward.
but are we opening ourselves up for issues?
So with that in mind, what I would suggest is when we get a little bit later, I don't know who's next on the agenda.
You,
We probably should go into an executive session and talk about some of the issues because and do it under the legal advice exception to the Open Meetings Act because I think that would be more appropriate and then you can continue your discussion. Just my thought.
Okay.
But it's a good question and I don't think there's any way you can ultimately determine where somebody potentially contracted COVID unless they've been in a bottle for the last month and they both have COVID.
Well, and I think going into this prior to, like in the first year when this first started, I kind of felt like maybe the tracking was a little better. Okay, so you went to Johnson County, or okay, you went to Franklin County, which store did you go to, blah, 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 blah. And so I think it was maybe a little bit better to track.
So I have to say, give you an asterisk because I'm not a medical professional. I don't know. But my concern is you have asymptomatic people that don't have any visible manifestation. And then they are around other people and then other people contract it. And then how many asymptomatic people do you have? How many people do you have that actually show symptoms? And how do you track that? There may be a way to do it, but I think the asymptomatic people are the ones that are the wild card. But I don't know if Lindsay is shaking her head, so I'm wrong.
Want to do Lindsay?
Actually, asymptomatic spread has been nullified. There is something called pre-symptomatic spread. So the 2 days before you get symptoms, you can spread it. But asymptomatic spread, just walking around in the community, that's been nullified through various studies. So I don't know what the context of the conversation is, but.
it has to do with the fact that we said 60-40 if you contacted code on the job. If you've already used your 2 weeks, we do 60-40, it'd be kind of like a work comp thing.
Right.
So now how do we determine whether they caught it at work or whether they caught it at the Chiefs game, like he said? So
Yeah.
I shouldn't use the Chiefs, any game. But so I think now that we're kind of in agreements on how to resolve that, but Wade wants to have a little further discussion.
Yeah, I think,
Because I don't think you would even know, would you, that? I
no,
mean,
I will say previously through this, it was harder to determine where you might have got your COVID from. I think it's still somewhat difficult, but now it's spreading a little faster. Like people who've been exposed are getting sick a little earlier than before. So I don't know what I'm trying to say. I think
it would be hard for you to determine if they got it at work, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you don't ask any questions where they think they may have picked it up,
Oh, yeah.
which is still being an assumption on their part.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We asked.
Absolutely an
Yeah.
assumption.
We asked, but they
Because
don't.
most everybody's out and about an awful lot.
Sometimes they don't know, and sometimes they know exactly where they think they got it. So it's just case by case.
So that was gonna be the question, if you tracking would allow you to determine whether they did or did not contact it on the job.
When was that motion?
In August. No,
It's like August 23rd.
Well, this started long before that. It started before I even sat down in here, I think. There was discussion prior to that.
So previously, we were operating under the potential for reimbursement by the federal government. And I don't remember when that ended, but December 31st. So there had to be a tracking mechanism so that if the federal government wanted to audit Coffee County to see, okay, who all fit into one of their 5 criteria, And some of the criteria we have to get, we go to Lindsay and verify. There were several requests that came to me that were incomplete and needed more additional information so that could go with the file. But from that point forward, once that COVID money expires, then I think, then it's up to the individual counties how they want to operate.
I guess an example is that, I'm sitting here beside Jesse, and Jesse comes down with COVID, and so I get quarantined. Is that correct? Well,
Are you 16?
maybe I was asymptomatic and it didn't affect me, and I gave it to Jesse. So, I mean, it's gonna be hard to prove where it came from.
But there's a difference between speculation and fact. And there's nothing that I've heard that can demonstrate that factually someone can say that Jesse contracted COVID from sitting next to Bob. It could have been from where Jesse was yesterday, this morning.
It could have
It's
been
a theory.
from
14 days prior.
I move a lot of miles before you
Jesse stayed home. So, okay, well, I agree with Wade. I think we'll need to discuss that to know where we're at.
Thank you for coming in.
Oh, sure.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you.
And then also on the 60/40, is there a duration on it? Are they gonna have it for 2 weeks? They're gonna have it for however long? Is that even in the motion? I mean, you can have 80 hours for full pay.
One would assume during the duration of your
Quarantine
quarantine,
for sickness.
Okay, and then if they get it again,
I would assume up to 80 hours, but
well,
Okay,
that
we'll
would be the
talk
next
about
one.
that.
Is there a limit on it? If
we'll
there's
talk
not,
about that and come back to it.
that'll work.
Anything else?
No, that was it, sir. No, that was it. Just need to be able to do payroll. Angie needs to have clarification, be able to say yay.
We'll get it figured out before.
Let me know. That'd be fine. I'm done. If you have any questions.
What did you find out on that bridge? Was that links? No, yes. No.
Yeah, it was. Basically, we went out the next day on the holiday and went back and scratched it, filled it back in. But actually it's running underneath the wing walls. You can see on the east side that grass is actually laying over. It's about a 2-foot swath. So what they're gonna be doing is putting it on the repair list, and we're gonna try to bulkhead it and then fill it in with flowable grout. Yeah, that'd be key. So,
How far back from the bridge was that erosion?
well, it's about halfway between the wing walls. It's probably about 5 foot. Yeah.
That's all I have.
Okay.
Wayne.
All right.
So before you wait, if you don't mind.
Good morning.
Our little ahead, there was a couple of questions on the payroll notices for the sheriff's department. If you don't mind, Eric, I'm assuming that's why you're here.
Yeah, I believe that's why I'm here.
So Dawn had a question on Rachel Hale. How many hours is she proposed to be working?
So we're proposing that it would be less than 1,000 hours per year.
My
Much less
understanding, the way
probably.
the rules used to be, you can't allow them to get over 1,000 hours or we're subject to all the benefit package.
Understood.
And to my knowledge, that hasn't been changed. I just want to make sure, if it hasn't been changed, I just want to make sure the individual's going to be held below 1,000 hours.
No, we
And not
understood,
expose us to the benefit.
we understood it'd be less than 1,000 hours in order to keep her at a part-time rate, much like our other part-time officer that we have. We may try to add a third. The fact of the matter is, having part-time officers sure help us out when we're short-staffed for whatever reason, COVID or other, that we have somebody that can cover it. So if we have multiple people available, it sure helps us out.
Does she have experience?
She does.
Okay. That's all I need to know.
Yeah, less than a year, but
Had experience.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess while you're here, the second motion is Darren Provo from jail office to sheriff's office, full-time. You're still short some deputies, correct? Full-time?
we are.
And this will fill one of those positions.
That's correct.
Now you have somebody come in for the
Now
jail.
you need a jail person.
Now, we'll need to hire for the jail. Kind of a,
Rob Peter to pay Paul.
well, yeah, but, you know, it's awesome that we have folks that are able to move up.
That's a
different
That is.
positions. And by move up, I don't mean some kind of promotion, I just mean to help us fill in those spots, and they have a desire and a willingness, and that was really a big selling point. He absolutely is just gung ho wanting to get involved in this.
If you got people that's qualified to move up, that's, you gotta respect that and make it happen, if
Absolutely.
they're actually qualified.
Yeah, and they show the desire, you want to try to reward them if you can. And of course, he's, you know, anybody that moves into this position as a law enforcement officer, not everybody, you know, is cut out for it. And so he's taking a gamble to say he wants to try to do that. Because we had to fill up in his spot. If it doesn't work out, he's got to find a job. And so, you know, and he understands this. We talked to him, we talked to his wife, and they are really excited about giving this a go, so.
Good deal.
And Eric, isn't it common in a lot of law enforcement agencies that you start out either in dispatch or as a driller before you can become an officer? And I know a number of agencies where that's the case. It's not here, but just so you're aware.
Yeah, and in fact, if you look at Johnson County up there, you don't hire in as a law enforcement officer. You hire in as a detention officer. And then you go to their academy while you're a detention officer, and then you're in the stack. If they have an opening, then they put it out to the detention officers first. And that's the way it works up there. So it's not unusual for it to work out that way. Plus, I mean, we're a small agency. Just knowing the background of these folks before they get to you, you might have to do some guesswork. And any of you who employ other folks know that it's always a gamble, right? They tell you the best and you hope for the best, but then you may find out something different. In this way, we have a little background on them, a little history on them, and that sure helps in a position of trust.
Good.
I did have another matter, if the commission is willing to listen to it.
Never run nobody down.
I don't have the photos with me, and the sheriff may actually follow up. But we did take some photographs after our meeting, the Wednesday night. The very next morning, we come in and we have trash cans set up in the dispatch as the sewer is pouring into dispatch. It was quite a cleanup operation. I'm gonna tell you that the folks that we had come in, I think Stover,
So,
yeah, did a fantastic job. I mean, just fantastic. They got it cleaned up. And more importantly, our workers didn't feel they were in a, I guess, a mess, right? So that, yeah, and it truly was. I mean, it was pretty awful. So, just to point out to the commission that, after our meeting, the things that we're telling the public are still going on. They're still happening and there's still a problem.
so can you want me to say something on it? Or I have some information on that as well.
Go ahead.
And because the pipes are so old, they're not covered by insurance. So because they're old rusty pipes,
Nice.
that's.
They're all cast, right?
Were they
Is
cast?
that correct?
You know, I'm not in a place where I could tell you what they are, what the material is that look that way.
I bet it's metal.
Ductile iron. See, and don't quote me on this, but I don't remember what year they put in a new swimming pool. It's been like, I think it was in the mid-80s before this last swimming pool.
Okay.
And they used cast ductile iron in it. And that's why you had to demote that pool to get the pool you got now. Just because all that piping down there corroded and got ate up and everything. So there's this new pool. Scott Jeffers can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but there's no metal in any of it. It's all Schedule 40 or better plastic, and yeah.
And we have some theories working on when these incidents seem to happen, but they do seem to happen during our testing, our drug testing at times when the bathrooms are being used down here, which might indicate that there's a problem elsewhere, in other words, drainage, right? So when they actually get used quite a bit, it's not able to drain and then you end up with a problem. But that's just a theory at this point. But it might indicate that we have problems going on beyond the point where it failed. So it might be behoove us to take a look at that
Yeah.
if we can.
Might have to find somebody to do this Has it been scoped before?
I don't know.
Right.
That would be my
That'd be-
unprofessional opinion.
we might find out, it might be where I would head, I guess.
Might be. But I didn't have anything else for you.
All right, thank you.
I have a question for Eric, if I could put it in here now while he's here. And this has nothing to do, I'm gonna put this in here as a representative.
Yes, sir.
And you guys made it where we can override the government on this, the governor on this COVID stuff. It goes back to the county, basically.
Yes.
Can we override the president and some of his silly things? His little order that anyone over 100 employees, is that going to include counties?
I had that same question. Certainly, if you asked him, he would probably tell you yes. I would say that right now, our Attorney General is doing a good job of doing the legwork on this. My position is that it's unconstitutional. As your state representative, that's my position. It's my personal opinion of what I've read. I don't believe that the president has the ability to tell us individually what medicine we should take. I just don't see how in the world that could ever fall into the president of the United States. But we will see what the legal battle turns out.
So I haven't figured out where, if you got 99, you're okay. If you got over 100, then he wants you to do all this. So anyway, I'm just curious of whether, I know he's pressuring governors, but our governor is probably not wanting his pressuring. But do we still have that right if the governor if it passes through the governor, come down to us, we still have that right to?
Under the Kansas Emergency Management Act, changes that we made, the biggest thing we wanted to do, or the biggest change we wanted to make is that the decisions are made at the local level, not from the top down, but rather from us. And so anything the governor comes up with has the ability to affect the state employees, and especially there at the Capitol building and such. But beyond that, it's going to be up to local government.
Okay. So,
Okay. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I was wondering about getting these motions if the sheriff sent down out of the way, if that's okay. Okay. So based upon the recommendation of the county sheriff, move to authorize and direct the chairman to sign the Coffee County payroll notice for Rachel Hale, sheriff's office part-time deputy sheriff, classification 40-0, wage of $20.18, effective 9/8/21.
I'll make the motion.
Tim moved,
Second.
Jesse seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next one is based upon the recommendation of the county sheriff, move to authorize and direct the chairman to sign Coffee County payroll notice for Darren Provo from the jail office to the sheriff's office, full-time deputy sheriff, classification from 25-5 to 40-1, from wage $17.02 to $19.02, effective 9/8/21.
I'll make the motion. Chairman.
Jesse's moved,
All second.
Tim seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Wade, for letting us get that off.
We have to wait until 10 because there are some people coming for the 10 o'clock.
Okay?
And maybe just because we have a few minutes now. To sort of follow up on your questions, Bob. So right now, what the recommendation is, as it relates to the executive order, let's say from President Biden, is Coffee County, the recommendation is to take a wait and see approach. Because at this point, there is no written guidance on what exactly that means. In his address to the media, he mentioned some ancient, I say ancient, but old provision in the OSHA guidelines, which we need to see what that is and what it says and how it applies, if it applies at all. It may not apply at all. So that would be my recommendation. I think what other counties are doing moving forward is we're not gonna do anything until we see what the written guidance is, which will come out at some point soon. Once we see that guidance, then we can determine what action we will take locally, if any. So that's just the follow-up on that. Any questions? I mean, it's brand new.
You had a question about the WC.
Oh, well,
WC. Work on.
work on. From what I'm reading, some companies or government entities are having issues when they mandate the vaccine, that workman's comp insurance are dropping them.
Really?
You know,
The companies or people who,
the companies, the agencies, when you
That's
mandate,
supplying, that's supplying the workman's comp.
yes,
If you're, just say Tom's business, he requires every one of his employees, just saying this, he requires every one of his employees to have a vaccine. His workman's comp underwriter or agent could potentially cancel his workman's comp policy because he's mandatory that each employee gets vaccinated. And there's not enough information behind this to make the workman's comp people comfortable covering the vaccines.
because there is no liability from the manufacturer. So basically, from what it was explained to me, since you don't have liability there, it could fall back on the company or the government entity, therefore,
Workman's
I
comp
haven't
saying,
read that yet.
we're out.
I haven't read enough on it either.
you know,
I'm sure it could very easily be out there, and probably is.
I mean, you have a company that tells George over here to get vaccinated, and George gets vaccinated, and George dies. You as an employer, mandatory that individual to get vaccinated. Now, who's gonna claim on that?
Yeah.
Is it gonna go to the company?
if
Is
you
it
don't
gonna
have.
go to the federal government, or is it gonna be your work comp?
Hmm.
you can't sue the federal government.
Yeah, you can't sue the federal government, so it's gonna go on the owner of the company, the
Can't
company,
take
or
the
work comp.
Can't sue the vaccination maker,
Mm-mm.
because he's no liability.
I have not heard that one. I don't doubt it, but I have not heard that.
So we'll have to look into that.
Too.
If they're setting up for a lawsuit.
I think right now, Coffee County has not mandated anything, so we're not in that. And it sounds like if it is mandated, it's mandated from somebody at a different level.
Mm-hmm.
So, but all interesting legal issues that will have to be explored, sorted out, and then, you know, as Eric said, as the Representative Smith said, our Attorney General is reviewing the legal options at the state level. And I also have extreme confidence in Attorney General Schmidt and what he's doing and what he's done. So in the meantime, we'll wait and see what is printed on paper, and that's what we'll control, and then we'll move forward from there. Any other questions or issues related to those topics?
Not right yet.
Okay. So we're sort of in a spot where we have 15 minutes until 10 o'clock. We have representatives who will be showing up, and are you the?
I think there'll be two more.
Two more, okay.
Well, we can take our break unless you have something else you want to present to us.
I have several things, but I want to wait until later. Maybe what I'll talk about right now is a quote that I found, I guess it stood out to me. So there's a short version and a long version, and since we have a couple minutes, maybe I'll just say,
The long version.
you want the long version?
I was joking with you, I just.
Depends on whether it's 5 minutes or 30 minutes, Tom.
Well, it'll be probably at the most a minute.
Go with it.
I'm messing with you. You do what you wish.
Okay. And the underlying topic is cynicism, which in some instances is relevant some days and not other days. But this is a quote by Theodore Roosevelt from back in somewhere in the area of 1910, between 1910 and 1920. So, and this is what it says. The poorest way to face life is to face it with a sneer. There are many men who feel a kind of twisted pride and cynicism. There are many who confine themselves to criticism of the way others do what they themselves dare not even attempt. There is no more unhealthy being, no man less worthy of respect than he who either really holds or feigns to hold an attitude of sneering disbelief toward all that is great and lofty, whether in achievement or in that noble effort which, if it fails, comes to second achievement. A cynical habit of thought and speech, a readiness to criticize work which the critic himself never tries to perform, an intellectual aloofness which will not accept contact with life's realities. All of these are marks, not as the possessor would feign to think, of superiority, but of weakness. They mark the men unfit to bear their part painfully in the stern strife of living, who seek in the affection, affection of contempt for the achievement of others, to hide from others and from themselves in their own weakness. The role is easy. There is none easier, save only the role of the man who sneers alike at both criticism and performance. So.
I get it. With that, we'll take a short break till the rest of people get here.
You pay any attention to Johnson County today?
Share and possibly down. So anybody was sitting for it, you try to sign a copy of us. She may or may not be there.
How are you, Rob?
Good. How about you, John?
Not too terrible. Thanks.
Staying out of trouble?
Yeah, I pretty much stay to myself. I don't get out much.
Do any fishing?
Shamelessly, no.
Yeah. I need to do it. Cooled off. I went there this spring, early summer, and then it got hot.
We're headed for Scarborough, Maine here in the 8th of October. I don't know what kind of fishing will be available when I get up there, but I'm gonna be there for 5 days, so I'm gonna find out.
What's that? Is that a fishing trip or?
We're just gonna hook on the fifth one. It's 25-hour drive, so we'll take 5 days to get there, and 5 home, maybe 6 home.
How many miles is that?
1,600 and something.
We went, this was in June, took the family and we went, drove all the way to coastal Oregon.
Tough to use.
Oh, man. We put 5,000 miles on it.
On that.
We went to Rushmore, Wall, Rushmore, the Bighorns, Yellowstone, through Montana, a little bit of Washington, up the Columbia River Gorge.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and all the way to, a friend of mine lives, has a vacation place right there on the, right on the beach. Between Newport and Baltimore. And we were supposed to, plan was to go salmon fishing, but the surf is too rough, so we set crab traps. We spent 5 days there with them. And hung out, and then came back to the giant redwoods, California. Yeah, across Nevada and Salt Flats, went back to Longville.
Northern out, southern out.
Yeah. It was a good trip.
You've seen any redwoods before?
No, my whole life, I've been wanting to see that. Yeah, we spent a whole day just kind of messing around there.
We flew out to Portland, rented a car and just drove to the coast. Went down Highway 101, clear down the redwoods. Sheer back in, running back up to Portland. And they're like,
I'm Shannon. Yes, nice to meet you.
it's beautiful.
Traffic out there, we were looking, sir, for the highways
Diane,
shut,
our owner.
and then they had fires.
Elizabeth Wade.
I'm gonna take my break.
Yep. Yeah, no worries.
Nice to meet you. Oh, no, it didn't sign you? No, I didn't sign you, right? I am.
Yeah, they did. I kind of like that.
I have to follow the instructions over there. Huh? You signed in wrong?
What kind of person would not sign
Obviously an idiot.
in? Weddings, funerals,
Yeah.
county commission meetings.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Nice football game?
No, Lebo had a sixth grader that was 6'2" and 175.
Yeah, how do you?
And they had another one that was,
Do you run the ball?
tried.
Well, it's hard to stop 16, yeah.
I mean,
No, I
that-
don't know that.
No, so in that league, if a kid weighs over,
That's
they can't run the ball unless it's like a recovery fumble or
what my nephew always, you
Yeah,
had to have a sticker on your helmet that you could run the ball.
yeah, they don't do that, but.
Anybody with a sticker could run the ball. I mean, the referees would be able
Like,
to.
it was hard for Mason to keep snaps. Because those guys went fast. And then they had like 30 kids on it. I was impressed. They did well. We really got beat. It scored 22-0. We got beat on play action calls. And they figured it out that one of our outside linebackers wasn't defending the pass play very well. So we kind of speeded up until I adjusted the defense and made sure that it was the kid's first time.
Or you coaching.
Yeah. And well,
Helping.
yeah, I was supposed to just be helping, and then the head coach called me and was like, I got a family emergency, I can't be there tomorrow. Guess I'm coaching my first football game. So, but it was good.
That's the one right now.
They pointed. Continuous. Everybody was wondering, if Hartford had like 100 points on them.
Maranatha.
Yeah. So, oh, man.
They're up there.
Madison, Braden Grimmett's my grandson.
Okay. So how about, Atwood?
COVID deal.
Yeah, Atwood's on the team I'm coaching.
Okay.
I'm not too sure.
Yeah. We might be able to make this game this Saturday.
We play Burlington. One of the two Burlington. Play Burlington team at Madison.
Just do it.
Are you making
All
me
the
right
way
now?
to do is just go to 60-40.
It's free. Community Network is sponsored it. So that's why I'm
I
telling
say
you.
I got a junior high and smaller.
We had a beautiful football weather there Saturday.
And we have our 75th company anniversary.
No.
The next weekend, so we're kind of buying out the stadium.
Cool. just started going to Hamilton this year.
Where do they live at?
Middle of nowhere.
Toronto.
Are they clear down by Toronto?
Right now, they're living in Toronto. They're trying to build a house, and
Okay.
they're not having, they've had some issues.
They're living on camper.
Okay.
Good lake.
Down by the doctor.
You go to the Chiefs game?
I see. Okay.
They could see it down.
Did you go to the Chiefs game?
I watched it.
Did you? You're not a Chiefs fan, I don't think.
I never even.
I like that.
We was got a good team. We are back.
I gave up watching it.
When he started, he was,
So we're gonna move forward with the 10 o'clock agenda topic, which is me and the MT Networks agreement. So this morning, if you look, and it was passed on to you, I believe it's in your packet and in your binder, the general agreement, communications equipment and services. And this agreement relates back to a presentation that I believe was presented to you in reference to broadband access being administered across the county and how that would occur. I believe a number of people presented on that topic, and I think the main one who spoke was
Vanderlinden.
Doug Vanderlyn. So today we have with us, and I don't want to misstate any names, so if I don't say a name right, then I apologize. But from MT Networks, Diana Stutzman, who is the owner of MT Networks, Shayna Raines, and Rob McDonald. I've been working behind the scenes with Shayna and the attorney for MT Networks and coming up with a final product that would meet both sides. So the key features of this, well, before we go into the contract, I don't know if anyone from MT Networks has any comments or anything they want to say. Everybody's good. Okay. So key features of this contract. This contract is a joint venture between Coffee County and MT Networks to provide wireless internet access service to Lebo, Waverly, Gridley, and Leroy, which I believe from what I've been told, and I believe probably what the original presentation demonstrated is an immediate need in those communities, especially with COVID and remote learning, which may or may not continue on into the future. So some of the things that I want to point out, the total maximum cost of the project is $550,000. It's being funded by Coffee County. That is being funded through American Relief Fund money that Coffee County has received. That's my understanding of what the agreement is. And then the agreement further contemplates installation of 18 sector or base units with an average cost per sector or base unit ranging from $25,000 to $35,000 a piece. Now, why that's important, as I was going through and reviewing this contract, I don't think even I know a little bit about the internet, but not a whole lot. And I thought of just your individual base unit that you have in your house, which they may range around, if you get a really nice one, the modem $300 or more. So I thought that was a key feature to put in there so that not only the board understood the cost associated with these units, but the public did as well. So moving on to page 2, and that would be section 4C under service terms. This is a key thing so that not only the board can understand, but the public can understand as well. And I'll just read it verbatim. Prior to the end of each community's 5-year service period, MTN, MT Networks will evaluate whether to continue service to each community via individual community business case studies performed by MT Networks using accepted industry practices. And then you might say, well, what is this individual community business case study? We had it defined so that you and the public would understand what that means and how it applies. For purposes of this agreement, individual community business case studies means evaluating each community on an individual basis at the end of year 4 after turn-up, which turn-up is defined in 4A, to determine whether the community is generating a positive cash flow result. Even more important, or maybe just as important, if an individual community business case study finds that the community is not generating a positive cash flow, a report will be provided to the county to demonstrate that continuing services within said community is not a viable option moving forward. And the example that was given to me, and I worked with the attorney for MT Networks on sort of modifying and changing and putting together this final product. If you have a community where it costs more to operate when I have 4 customers, as an example, and it's costing $50,000 to $100,000 to operate. Well, you're not, it just doesn't make good business sense. But this contract will provide that information has to be demonstrated through a document that will be provided to the county. So with that being said, does anybody have any questions? But there's more to the contract than that, but those were some of the key features that we worked on behind the scenes.
I have a question over on 3D. It says this agreement wholly contingent upon MT Network's ability to secure the Lebo Water, Waverly Water, Leroy Grain, Gridley Grain. What if they can't secure them? 2 of those are actually privately owned. And I guess a follow-up that would be, suppose the grain elevator Gridley burns down. Are they going to do they have another site where they'll be able to continue that?
And I think since we have somebody from that's more technical than I can answer. If someone from MT Networks.
Yeah, sure.
If you'll come up to.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, the network has to be contingent on us getting vertical access. So if we can't get that, then if we can't come to an agreement with either one of the communities or grain elevator, for instance, to get that vertical structure, then those sectors, I mean, we would have to come back and figure out what are we going to do about that. But we wouldn't be able to purchase those sectors to then have them put into place. So we wouldn't draw funds for that community. So if we just can't work something out, we can bring that back to the county and see what other options might be there to try and get that. They have to be, those radios have to be vertically situated in order to get that access.
So those sites will be determined before you get any money then?
That's right.
If you do have those,
Yep.
that they are available.
Yep, and actually we're working that right now with those communities, trying to get contracts in place. So, whether it's a grain elevator or a water tower right now, to say, going to city council meetings, meeting with grain elevator companies and figuring out, hey, will you let us on? What does that look like? We need a contract. So that part is taking place right now.
You have them all in place then.
Right, yeah.
I'm surprised you haven't already talked to them, got that already down.
We're working on that right now. We have talked to them, we are working, but it just takes some time.
The elevator at Leroy, that's all on concrete silos, which is probably pretty stable. I mean, it's stable. It's not sitting there vibrating all the time.
Right.
They've already got a huge amount of heat and things there. The elevator at Gridley is going to sit there and vibrate all the time. What's that do to your system? Do they have nothing stable other than a leg?
Right.
And there is vibration. and we
Right,
will not
yeah.
eliminate it.
Yeah, and that's a accepted practice is mounting to grain silos like the one at Gridley.
And there's nothing that good.
Well, the
Well-
silos are the new ones that they just put up, there's 3
Are
there.
they tall enough?
Yeah, those will be tall enough. So that's what we're hoping that we can work an attachment situation with Leroy Co-op, and we're working through that right now with them. Yeah. So there's not a water tower in Gridley.
Yeah, there's not a water tower there, so.
Right.
But
You
even,
answered my question, so.
Yeah.
even that metal grain bin's gonna have a slight
Sure.
vibration to it.
Yeah.
Where the concrete would.
Right.
How many people you need at each location to make it profitable, make it cash flow? There's no mention of numbers.
Yeah, we'll have to capture all our expenses. And like I said, right now, we're still working with grain elevators and cities. I mean, they're gonna charge us to be on those towers. Probably the biggest factor in there that we don't know, and we can't define it, is in the life of the product. So these are an electronic device, and at some point, the manufacturer will end of life that product. I mean, just like any, whether it's a vehicle or refrigerator at home or whatever, and it quits and you try to get parts, they'll end the life of product at some point. So that could be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So if that, let's say, example of, lightning strike or a natural disaster and those radios are destroyed, we go back to replace them. And the cost is, we don't know what that cost is. They've gone up or not. I don't know.
But the insurance gonna be a player in that.
It could be, right. And at what level? I mean, there's a lot of undefined factors there. And if we look at it and one community has very few subscribers and the cost and some of that's geography, equipment evolves and we can get the same access with fewer sectors. But we don't know that. So there's a lot of unknown in there.
If in the life of 4 years, you're still committing yourself to 5 years.
That's right. Exactly.
I got one question. What do you guys use to protect for lightning and surge?
Mhm.
What do you guys use?
So the radios that will be what I'm going to call the base stations. So they'll be the large radios that are at the grain elevators and the water towers. They're fed by fiber optic cable, which is glass, so it's non-conductive. And then the power is a DC power supply, and it's got a lightning surge arrestor system at the base, so it's got to be powered. Right? There's DC powers or rec fire to batteries, and then the batteries go to a lightning surge and then to a fuse panel that then goes to the radio. And then we purchase ahead of time, at the time of purchase, the extended, what they call that, all fault warranty on these radios. So one gets dropped, somebody decides to shoot one with a high power rifle, whatever, that coverage, we can buy it in a certain block, and I can't buy it beyond that certain time, like buy an extended warranty on a vehicle. I can buy an extra 2 years or whatever. Ford or Chevy won't sell you 10 years, right? So I can buy so many blocks, and then at some point, this, well, no, your equipment's too old, we're not gonna sell you that all fault warranty. But those are some things that we invest in to make sure that equipment will last as long as we can make it last.
Have you guys checked out EMP shields on their protector stuff?
Yeah, I have talked to Tim Carty, and some of his products. He couldn't guarantee me that his product was the product that the company that we purchased from, and that's all further that went, but I can definitely have a discussion with him. But he does sell product in that space, if that makes sense. There's competitors to him too, but yeah.
The extended warranty you was talking about, I'm sure that's gonna be quite costly, and I have no idea on dollar amount. Is that built into the 550,000?
Right, yeah, so when we purchase
Your
equipment,
extended warranty is inside the 550
that's right, yeah, it's part of the purchase price.
for 2 + 2 years, 3 years, 4 years?
I don't have that number with me. I mean, I could sure send you an email and give you that update on what that lifespan of that warranty is.
Just your equipment alone is gonna eat up to 550, so
Right. Yeah,
you do have some skin in the game as well, so.
oh yeah.
That's
for
the way I'm looking at it, and the money was handed from the government and said we could use it for broadband.
why not give it a whirl?
Just offhand, do you have any idea how many people in the county will not be able to benefit from this?
I don't. I do know that Jacobs Creek is an issue. It's low-lying and has extremely dense canopy foliage, which are both issues. And Aliceville will be an issue. Now, I have, Doug Vanderlyn and I have been trying to work on some outside-the-box solutions for those two areas, but they will not be served by this solution. Just won't reach there. Other than that, there's some things just having to do with, if you had a large, let's say, if you're an agriculture operator and you had a large set of high metallic grain bins between you and the water tower, that could be an issue. Some of those things could be resolved where, you put a tower at your premise or a pole in your yard and bury the cable back to the house. That would be outside of our standard install. That's not what we consider standard installation. But things like that can remedy those connections sometimes. That makes sense.
You say 95% of the population should.
I hate to put a number on it, because most of the population, I have to look at the demographics. I mean, most of the population in Cobb County is in Burlington. So to say how much of, the population of the county is left, and then how many of them are in Jacobs Creek, maybe if you gave me some time to do the math, but yeah.
Will it be better, well, on the northeast part of the county, right now, I'm not able to get any of it. Will this improve?
Right, so you're talking about rural Waverly.
Yes.
Right, yeah. So yes, the answer is yes. It will improve rural Waverly broadband access for sure.
I'm a little bit surprised Aliceville would be an issue because it sits up in the air.
Right.
There's not a lot of residency there, but they're all important.
Right, it's a
Every
distance
residence is
issue
important.
from Leroy, as far as how far the signal will carry. So we run into an issue is that the signal strength is impeded enough by the time it gets to Aliceville that we can't connect the radio, is what the engineering shows us.
The way the crow flies, it probably is over 7.5 miles.
Well, you guys was hoping for a outside possibility of 8 mile previously.
Right, and I think it's further than 8 miles, because we've looked at that.
Yeah, it's 4 to the east and
Yeah.
4 to the east and 5 north, so it's only 9 miles driving, so it probably ain't over 7.
One thing that we have looked at is trying to do a point-to-point, so a single radio is designated to point to Aliceville, and then there would be a radio that would receive that. So instead of trying to do a point to multi-point where the radio's power is divided across many subscribers, it's a single radio and all of its power is allocated to another radio and they talk back and forth, and then a distribution at Aliceville. But we haven't quite got there yet.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Thank you.
Ralph.
Maybe a couple other comments to follow up. It's my understanding through my conversations with MT Networks that should, let's say, one of the pieces of equipment, one of the 18 base units, something happened and they fail during the term of this contract, MT Networks is responsible for replacing that equipment at the, however, whatever that would take. It's not something that would be additional, and they're shaking their heads up and down. So if you have any of those base units that fail, which I don't know how often they fail, if they fail at all, that's a cost that MT Networks would be responsible for. And then the other part is the contract reads a total maximum cost of $550,000. So the way I read it and interpret it, that if, let's say, MT Networks is not able to get to meet the provision that you mentioned, Bob, in 3D, then that part of the $550,000 would not be tapped into. And they have to have a place to put it, to add to it. It's up to a maximum of $550,000. And that's if everything, if they're able to meet the needs of each of these locations, the Lebo Water Tower, Waverly Water Tower, Leroy Grain Elevator, and the Gridley Grain Elevator. And is that my understanding? And everybody's shaking with MT Networks is shaking their head up and down. So it's not that the $550,000 goes straight out the door. It has to be tied to a specific source and location.
We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 4 locations, but 18 base units.
That's above my.
So can you enlighten me a little bit on that?
Sure, yes.
I mean, because you run 18 base units at $30,000, that's $540,000 roughly.
Right.
But there's only minimal locations, so is there gonna be?
Right, so the engineering, the way this is designed, there's multiple factors. So the installation is, I think, listed as 25 to 35 per sector.
That's what it says.
Yeah, and some of that has to do, most of that actually has to do with loaded labor costs. Us hiring a contractor to come out and install these. They're gonna climb the tower, they have to fabricate brackets. Those guys are, and in fact, Coffee County is not the only community using these funds for these projects. So getting climbers, it's a premium, their rates are going up because it's, right, exactly. So that's probably one of the largest, it is the largest factor to these projects is the installation. As far as the number of sectors, it has to do, so when we did the engineering study, we're looking at population base and how many multi-points each one of these single point radios can serve. So when we start counting dots on the map, I think Lebo had additional sectors in order to serve the proposed, just because there's more people live there. And you have to do 4 sectors per site so that you can cover 360 degrees.
Oh, okay.
So that lands on to, we take 4 times 4, right? And then those additional radios land in, well, this sector, if we get, I think we figured I think it was 50% take rate, just because that's what we see on average. So we used an industry average take rate. And when we look at that compared to the dots on a map by geospatial mapping, we can count rooftops. We start looking at, well, this sector will serve X amount of homes. We're over that count at a 50% take rate. We have to add another sector to pick up the difference. If that makes sense.
Timeline, how long?
That's a good question. As I mentioned, you guys, Coffee County and MT Networks, and we're not the only players in this space right now, just because of the way the funding is allocated to use for broadband. My goal would be to have the project 50% complete by the end of the year. That's assuming we work everything out today. I haven't ordered any gear because we don't have a signed contract in place. Assuming that happens, and I place a PO with our equipment vendor this afternoon, and he doesn't tell me, oh, by the way, Friday, we lost all of our stock of some little widget that I have to have. I feel confident in saying we got 25% of the equipment in, so that would be one of the sites, right? There's other factors as far as getting the contracts finished with, getting access to the vertical structure. Like I said, we're working on that, so long as we can iron that out, I take expedited delivery of the equipment and it shows up in a timely manner. The installation guy is well aware of the project. I mean, every time I talk to him, he's like, hey, one of my crews is going to Hawaii, another one's going to South Dakota, I got guys going to Alaska, I get on my calendar. So it's, mid-September right now. The weather window is closing fast. Those guys aren't going to climb if it's blowing snow and Thanksgiving. So there's a lot of factors. All things being equal, if all all those things land like I hope they will, then, you know, ideally we would get at least one site, hopefully two up before the end of the year, and then it'd be spring. You know, unless we get some mild February days and those guys are willing to come climb and I'm on their calendar and we can work it out. I'm in the construction business, so burying cable, once it gets to October, you know, it's sketchy at best.
Section 4D of the contract does commit us to a 1 year from the date this is signed though. So we've committed to getting it done within the 1 year based on that contract.
What is the total cost of the whole? Can you?
Some of those costs we won't know until, I don't know. You know, we've got, not included in these, right, is like all of, I don't know how many customers I'm gonna have. You say total cost, you're talking total loaded cost, because every time we send a technician, hook somebody up, you know, that guy's on salary, it's a truck roll. I don't know how much take rate I'm gonna get. You know, there's a lot of unknowns. So we've engineered, the number we came up with that's in the contract was based on equipment cost and installation of the base stations. Right. So it would be hard for me to predict, you know, hopefully the more customers we get on the network, the more the total cost of the project, just because we're having to add additional customer radio, which is a good problem to have, right? And that's not a bad thing, but it drives the cost.
What's it gonna cost for the family to sign up?
I'm not familiar, that's a good question for
See,
Shannon.
that's what's gonna recover your installation cost.
Right,
That's not, you know, that's not totally part of your fixed cost.
right.
In one sense.
It's still a cost, we just
It's still a
recover
cost, but
it.
it's a recoverable cost over usage.
Right.
So, you know, we gotta be careful where we put this cost and this cost.
Right, we have a one-time installation fee. So if a
Okay.
customer comes in, they pay a $200 fee, which
$200?
fee. So we have well, each house will have a unit in their home as well. That's more than 200, but we couldn't price it. We found out we couldn't price it what we really needed to and get customers sign up, so we
But you're
charged.
gonna gradually recover that.
Correct. So we'll have a $200 installation fee, and then the our lowest package for residents is $59.99 a month. That's for 25 downstream, 10 upstream service, and it can go up from there. We can go up to 100 megabits downstream, 25 upstream, and I believe that's at 119. So there's a range in there depending on what that family needs and what they want to go for.
I guess it's gonna be a dumb question, but what's the difference between what's upstream and downstream?
So
I'm not a tech.
yeah, so when you
I'm with you, Bob, I don't get it.
So you're watching a Netflix show over the internet, and the video input coming to you, that's downstream internet. When you are going through the guide and you're making selections with a remote and you're clicking on something, you're sending a signal back to Netflix that says, I select this, whatever show, that's the upstream. So in a typical broadband scenario, on our fiber product, because it's a superior technology, the service is symmetrical. So the downstream and the upstream are the same because the fiber has more bandwidth than we can fill. The wireless project, wireless technology has an issue where there's so much wireless spectrum, and in order to shore up the downstream, because it's used more than upstream, we load it. So we give more of the bandwidth to the downstream and use less of it for the upstream, because in a typical residential application, even in a business application, if you were like in medical and you were uploading high definition, photos, videos, things like that, then the upstream becomes more critical. But yeah.
Now, this isn't a question for you, but on this American Relief Fund, what's the time frame, Angie, on where that's got to be invested?
Well, we have half of it in our fund right now. I don't know when we're getting the other half, but you're talking about investing it?
Well,
Correct.
it's gonna take a year for this project to get completed. The funds have to be
Spent by-
paid out before then, or it's gotta be sent back?
I don't believe so.
I thought
I'm
it
sure there's
I don't-
I'm sure there's a timeline on it.
I don't believe they define a big timeline on that yet. There are some projects, I'm gonna get them all confused, just because we've got a ton of grant infrastructure company, but there are some that go out till 2025 that you have to have committed.
Okay.
So
It's not the
it
same
wasn't
as
like the
CARES.
first,
Yeah.
right, CARES had a very, very short
Yeah, that was
timeline.
just a few months.
Right. This
So
is
it appears
a
that this timeline is gonna be extended out. For this project, we wouldn't have an issue of funding it
Right. I
through the
don't believe
American
you're
Relief Fund.
getting your second drawdown.
But
It's
even though
a year from now.
this may not be done for a year, as soon as they get their contracts with the 4 locations and they're guaranteed, aren't they getting paid then? I don't know how they're getting paid, but aren't we paying them then so they can go ahead and purchase the equipment? So we're not waiting till the end of this
No,
to pay it.
but as the information comes in or the request, let's say they get LEVO approved, they've got a spot, a location on a tower, whatever, and that's above my knowledge base. And they order the equipment, I think at that point in time, that money gets dispersed to take care of that.
But it wouldn't be dispersed, the installation part of it wouldn't be dispersed yet, correct?
Look, if you don't mind, I'll tell you how we normally do this in the regulated world. And I worked with Angie before on the IRU that we did several years ago. Each month, I will accumulate our costs, whether it be payroll, a tower climb, equipment costs, and I will submit an invoice very detailed to Angie showing this is everything that we paid and got accomplished, and she can have backup invoices if she needs that for her records. And then she will pay it as you guys approve it, I assume. So that's the way we've typically done some stuff.
And there'd be no problem with that, except the installation cost, if it's still 10 months down the road, it's 25% of the project, whatever that percentage is. We wouldn't be billed for that until the installation is complete.
Correct. You will not be billed until we have spent the money.
So we're not extending anything ahead of time,
Correct.
prepaid, which
Correct.
I want to make sure we didn't prepay stuff.
We'll internally fund it for 30 days. I'll submit an invoice and hopefully get paid within that 30 days. Offset our costs.
Do you have any problems with the way
No,
you looked it over?
I've been working on this for the last month.
3 weeks, 4 weeks.
A month and a half with the attorney for MT Networks. We've gone back and forth. We've changed multiple provisions to, I think that are probably advantageous to both sides, but I wanted the individual case study portion defined because I think both this board and the public needs to know what exactly that means. And then at the end, if it doesn't work out and MT Networks out of necessity needs to say we can't continue to provide service in this community, then there has to be some sort of documentation to demonstrate why. And that's something that's added, and we've gone back and forth about that, and I think that works out. So
Basically, it's 137.5 per city on the 550 divided by 4, so that won't be hard to calculate. This city's done. Any further discussion? Any other questions?
So I think now you just need a motion if you're ready to approve and sign the contract. And if you have a blue pen.
I do. Blue pen. Just for you. I'll have to go get me a red one, Andrea. Not the ink color. Not
Anyway, yeah.
So we need a motion to agree to the general agreement, communications, equipment and services with MT Networks. Would that be good terminology?
For the board to approve and the chairman to sign the general agreement, communications, equipment and services contract between Coffee County and MT Networks LLC for for the purpose of providing wireless internet access service to Vivo, Waverly, Gridley, and Leroy with a total maximum cost of $550,000.
I don't think in this agreement that Coffee County's address is 110 North Sixth. There's 110 North Sixth. I don't believe that's our address.
I believe it's the fiber board.
Fiber board would be South Sixth. I mean, where is the fiber board? Brad's the fiber board.
I'm not the fiber
That's
board,
south.
but
We're
it
south.
is,
We are South Sixth. We are not North Sixth. North Sixth is that building across.
yeah, the contract is through the fiber board to do this.
And where is the fiber board?
It is,
It's not
we
across.
meet
not
with,
across
at
street
the,
here.
the school board office.
That'd be south.
Okay.
Well, no.
Now,
If it's a school board office, it'll be,
Neosho Street.
some,
now.
That's on the issue.
401 North, 401, Neosho now, being, 301 Neosho. If it's at the school board office,
Is that a technicality
it's
that
not,
needs to
it's
be
not the correct
remedied
address, no matter
prior
what it
to
is.
signing?
But it probably needs to have this address. So what it, I didn't even,
yeah.
that wasn't anything that I was,
Addresses kind of seem to stick out.
yep.
Postal service worker. That's true.
But it is,
Correct.
exactly.
So what is the correct address?
Here?
Right.
110 South Sixth.
So if you scratch through north and make an S. And then the chairman, and then
I corrected it here, I'll initial it.
initial, and then it will need to be initial down there and as well.
Do we need to have in there funds come from American Legion?
Yeah, I
We
got it.
need to have a source of funds.
Yeah, so we have typed that.
Yeah.
So where I ended a total maximum cost of $550,000 with the funds to be allocated from the American Relief Fund monies provided to Coffee County.
I'll move.
Any further discussion? Jesse moved
All second.
and seconded. Any further discussion? Addresses. I get it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Pardon me? It just had one.
That Tom's name.
So do we need to direct the chairman to sign that contract?
Yes, that was part of the motion.
That was part of it. Okay.
I remember.
I missed that part.
Good luck on the project, Rob. Rob.
When you get Lebo up and going, come a mile and a half south of the stop.
We'll let you know, you come sign up.
Will you go out and contact everyone, give them, tell them that they're available now, or?
Yes, when sites come up, we'll work through mailer, social media, newspaper. It's in our advantage to get as many customers on as quick as we can. We have to be careful, and we only have so much staff to get it scheduled out, but yeah.
So that's the basic agenda, so roundtable.
Lindsay needed to come down. She was requesting a 15-minute executive session for personnel matters, non-elected personnel.
Okay. I think Wade has one too.
I have a couple, but
You want to do hers first?
it doesn't matter. By the time she's contacted and gets down here, we could probably be started with one and then give her a time when we're gonna come back and she can be here.
That'll work.
Okay. So I need to request a motion for the commission to recess into executive session for consultation with county counselor to discuss internal legal issues related to the Justice Center project. And those matters would be deemed privileged under the attorney-client relationship exception to the Kansas Open Meetings Act. 15 minutes, myself and the board.
So moved.
Jesse's moved, Tim seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We're going at 10:44.
I didn't hear anything from Tim, I just needed head on.
He did not. He's green.
So we'll have Lindsay back around 11.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I'll get it.
You're going in with this one, right? Yes.
Right.
I'll wait on you.
Thank you. I'll be as close on this story as last week. then.
Okay, thank you.
So you probably want to, after everything's done today, just make sure they clean up good and clear everything out.
After the lunch?
Yeah. Okay, so we'll get, so they'll be upset with us if it's not cleaned up properly.
And so, yeah, put the notice that we actually locked the building?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Terry thought that that was part of your job, but that's still ours, but it's fine, I'm glad you did it, because I was gone into East Wisconsin, so it worked out great.
Okay.
But yeah, we do have to lock the building, so you will want to lock the building.
Okay.
And I guess just 1:30, make sure everybody's out, so, yeah.
Okay.
We are back. It is 11 o'clock and here's Lindsay.
I was wondering if I could have an executive session for non-elected personnel for probably 15 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. With Wade or
Sure, that's fine.
with Wade, you and the commission?
I'll make the motion.
Tim's made a motion,
I'll say.
Bob seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're going at 11:03.
I like that.
But if I do it, and how did he look up?
So do I need to be down there to help Barb so that they've got it covered, getting stuff set up? Do I need to be down there when it starts? Or-
Okay, necessarily. I mean, you can be there whenever you want to be. I just make sure that they're getting everything cleaned up and it's all done and, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I still want to not be doing something, but somebody's waiting for me. They call me one, and with something, she said, so she's always been able to say something. So she just doesn't know what to say. But I was her. And then so she called and it takes a lot. It's one of having something, something they have to, let it be, something where they can tell. But we had a small and something scary. Yeah. It's terrible. Yeah. Everybody's hard now trying to get. They send yeah, are you? Not yet, I'm looking to it, but that's not what it is. Oh, yeah. That's not happening. Even surgery and you don't do anything within get any extra thing. Yeah. I'm so excited about everything that we're doing. I want to help support. Yeah. Everybody at home, money. They want people to volunteer for weekends off to do things, so I think that's what we're doing. Well, I do wish you were okay?
So close. I don't have my list in front of me. Who's supposed to bring the list?
Yeah, that's how usually what I do. But if it's not something I can like that, so I'm like, I'm gonna do like the after the other day. It's maybe it's like that. It's kind of nice to do it. I've never had some guys who want to go to get on it. But I feel lucky for them, I don't want to think that anything being so. Sometimes it's great. Like, I'm a chicken in there. Yeah. The girls never, they would eat my chuck, so. And now I'm not good at trying. Someone's gonna put my food, but it'll turn out good, right? If he likes the stuff, then he's good. You want it? Most of the time. And one thing we did, he has like, he drives motorcycles, but that's maybe for us. And then I say, a lot of times there's some kind of functional life, and then less of them. I do it, and it's once in a while, like, oh, I learned how to ride one for myself, and I'm like, oh, no. So that's, yeah, I think that's one of the things to do. Yeah. So you guys know what's going on. I'm okay, so, yeah. I just, yeah. And this is the one that I make, when it's too hot, too much in my face, but it's still like really very long. We've got the, like, when it's too hot, it's, you know, it's a very bad one, it's a very can. Yeah. I was just wondering, and I don't think I have a lot of that, so she's like, you're like, oh, and so it took like years, like, kind of doing well, as long as it's not super good, maybe it's something. So it's kind of stuff, you know, years before it was, like, in some time, I know, when I was off, I have to, like, I think it was hard to, you know, go some crap on, cool down, like, it. You know, for really don't stuff. So now I'm like, this one, you know, it's bad enough, to be outside, and, not to breathe outside. And this was scary, that's why I started thinking of doing a certain writing, I think they're doing this thing. Do you want to write this for me, or do you like this? Yeah. Yeah.
We are back.
He got lost.
Guarantee it wasn't because he forgot the address.
I'm not even gonna go there.
So need a motion to go back into executive session with Wade, Lindsay, and commission for,
Same topic, non-elected personnel to discuss, issues involving non-elected personnel, I think is what she had requested.
Correct.
And I don't know how long. you want
she
to-
said 15.
15, okay.
I'll move.
I'll make the motion. Bob then moved, Tim seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We'll go 11:22.
2037, they'll be back. What I was thinking of, 27.
Grace on here, back and we'll watch it.
It's Monday, 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 Monday.
Monday, Monday.
Joe. You are back.
I will request one more 5-minute executive session, but I'm probably not gonna do it just yet, to kind of make it to where there's actually something happening out here. I know I don't like going into executive session, and, you know, it's unfortunate that the topics require it, but they do, so. I guess 2 topics to discuss right now. One is fund number 970, which was the COVID or CARES fund. That is the fund in which the American Relief Fund money currently resides. And in talking with Angie, the auditor, didn't have an issue with that, but I think so that it's accurately represented or depicted, I think that CARES needs to switch to American Relief Fund. And that way there's no confusion. None of that money that was received in July has been allocated or distributed. And the first distribution looks like it might be to MT Networks when they get the broadband project up and running for equipment once that they send in invoices. So I would request you consider that fund number 970 change from CARES to American Relief Fund. And then that way there's a clear designation. It may not matter at the end of the day, but right now it's depicted as CARES, and it's not. So
That account previously is zeroed out.
correct.
CARES is, yeah.
CARES is gone, but
Right.
now we're just changing the funding, we're changing the account name.
Where that money resides when it comes in, and right now it came in July, 794, 337.50. So, and then when the second half of that distribution comes in, which I have no idea when that'll be, but that way there's a clear delineation of it's American Relief Fund money.
I don't have a problem with that.
I don't know if the person needs a motion on that, or
I've already corrected it, I've already changed it, or whatever.
I'm good with it.
I'm good.
The last topic to discuss outside of the executive session is the Justice Center project. And I think it was a very informative and important meeting that occurred Wednesday night. A lot of information, a lot of public comment. And I think that's what the public needs to have the opportunity to express their feelings, whether it be about location, whether it be about financing, whether it be about how many beds are in the facility, whether it be who's paying for it, how it's being paid for, what's wrong with what you have, all of those things, whether the court and the county attorney's office should go with the Justice Center overall. Those are important discussion points, and you know, I was pleased myself at the turnout. I think there were, although the camera didn't show it, there were probably approximately 70 people present, and 15 or 17 actually commented, which I think is incredible. So I would encourage you to continue to move forward in that format. But what the matter is currently on the November ballot, and because you made the motion here 2-3 weeks ago, I lose track of time. With some of the questions that were answered or asked, and some of the comments that were made, I would encourage you to consider whether this ballot question is right at this point in time. And since that time, I think, you know, there may be some, I mean, the location needs to be determined first and foremost, whether it be at the airport, whether it be adjacent to Burlington, whether it be somewhere else. And I think location at this point in time, there are potentially some viable options that may need to be explored by the county, and you guys get to make that decision. But I turn it over to each of you to have that discussion on whether you think the ballot question should move forward, what the next steps are. That's just based on the feedback that was presented. And then I still think doing these town hall meeting, so to speak, what it was, it's a special session, but having the commission there, because each of you provided input and dialogue related to different questions or comments that were made. And I think as the questions and comments come in, then the presentation can be further developed to have those questions answered in advance to present to the public, because they're the ones going to the ballot box and checking yes or no whether they agree with it or not.
Well, in light of, after the meeting Wednesday, I was informed that there are some other possibilities for land adjacent to the city that some citizens have stepped up and offered for sale. So south of town for me was ideal. That got shot down, so to speak. We own the land at the airport. That was one of the ducks that were in a row to build it out there, contingent on some surveying and what needed to be done by the engineer. But in light of that, the other properties that I've been told about, I think it's, of course, that's everybody's number one question: where's it going to go and why is it here? This and the other. But if we have other avenues that are a better option than that, I think we need to explore those.
I agree.
I'd agree.
So everybody agrees to resend the prior motion to place the Justice Center jail issue on the November ballot. Is that what you're agreeing to, or agreeing that you need to explore other options?
That's what I'm agreeing to, because the location is the number one question, the size and all like that. But again, if we're gonna try and send this to ballot saying, well, maybe it's gonna be at the airport, but now we got another option, I don't think it's gonna set too well. But I would like to have the time to explore these other options that have recently surfaced.
Yeah, me for one, I prefer not to put the process salts on the ballot, but that was one of two important topics the other night, was a lack of location. And because we don't have a location specifically pinpointed, and our citizens deserve to have that opportunity where it's gonna be. And most of the emphasis the other night was, gotta be put in the city of Burlington or very close adjacent. So I can support also pulling it off of the ballot, and hopefully early next year we could come up. I'm not gonna say do it by a special election, but I'm not too sure once we get a location pinpointed, and I don't mean to push it down anybody's throat, but the quicker we move on it and possibly get it behind us, to me, is gonna be a plus.
Well, as far as pushing it down anybody's throat, when you hold public meetings, people have the opportunity to express their opinion, and they have the opportunity to vote on it. It's not pushing it down anybody's throat.
And it's all on video.
Yep.
Everybody has the opportunity to review the video. So it's been discussed quite lengthily at several of our meetings, and even remotely back a year or two.
So I will say, I posted on the county attorney webpage, sort of a quick update on the special meeting, and that was the day before, the thing that I had mentioned in Tuesday morning. And it had at least shown, at least if it's accurate, that social media wise, it had reached somewhere around 7,000 people, which the last post that came out of the county attorney's office maybe reached 41. So that's significantly different and should demonstrate the overall interest in this particular project. So moving forward, my opinion is you still need to continue on with moving into and doing the same thing in different communities, whether that be New Strong, Lebo, Waverly, Gridley, Leroy, because I think each of those population bases deserve to come in and have the same opportunity to provide input and feedback regarding this project. And it's not just a Burlington jail or justice center, it's a Coffee County jail justice center, which means all four corners of the county need to have their input and feedback heard. And you may hear different things along the way. Waverly may have different thoughts and ideas. I don't know, but the only way you can ensure that you know is you put it out there and you let people come in and speak. And I think it went well. The format, in my opinion, went pretty well. It didn't get out of control. Everybody had an opportunity to come up and speak and express their opinions overall. And I think that's important. So the only issue that came up several times was the notice regarding the special meeting. And I will say that part of why the notice was what it was is, I'm working with the sheriff, we were anticipating the architect to be present. And we were waiting on the architect to determine whether he could attend that meeting because he has a lot of valuable input related to the plans and the structure and the design and all the things that go into that none of us are able to necessarily speak about. We did not find out until late in the week, on the weekend, that he had an issue that would likely make him unavailable. And we waited until the last minute to figure out if that was the case. And when it became apparent that he had a family matter that would took priority, then I reached out and contacted each one of you and said, I need to know whether you want to have a special meeting and we need to get it up and running. I contacted Angie the next morning to see if she'd put the agenda together after you each approved it. And that's how that worked. It wasn't, the notice went out as quick as it could. And if we go back to November, the notice for those special meetings was the day before because we had to move fast. So if at all possible, we will notify the public of a special meeting as far in advance as we can. And if you want to set up present time today, another one of these meetings, we can do that. And it will be, that notice will be right now and in an open session. And then there will be further notice that will be disseminated at a later date of time. But that's up to you if you want to do it again.
Well, I think we need to do it again.
Oh, yeah.
I think we need to continue. I think we need to continue the journey and get something set for the next city we go to. As Eric explained over last Thursday, the sewer line broke, dumping raw sewage into the dispatch center. You know, I think we need to forge on. Yes, I believe we need to pull it off the ballot for November, but I think we need to crusade ahead the bed count, my thing is, yeah, there's a lot of talk about a 79, 80 bed. If we go 50, that's compromising. But 15, 20 years down the road, or 20 years down the road, an expansion of 20 beds is probably gonna cost just as much as what the whole system's gonna cost right now, potentially. At a 10% increase, that's $1 million a year.
And the whole, the Justice Center, the number of beds, a lot of what is being discussed is sort of a, you're trying to forecast what's gonna happen into the future. And whether those numbers are right, whether they're wrong, I don't know.
But you got your blinders on if you're not looking out that far ahead.
On a project like this, if you're not looking 25 to 30 plus,
You're gonna be doing it again.
I talked to Cloud County clerk and sheriff this last week. They put up an 80 bed facility in 2014. And currently their inmates from their county is currently running between 25 and 30, possibly 35. The inmates that they currently are putting in their whole house right now is running between 80 and 100. There's so many, I shouldn't say opportunities. There are so many people in jail, incarcerated, I can't pronounce it, that I'm not sure, jail expansions in different counties has been brought up a little bit of an issue, over expansion. But I'm not too sure the way things are going here for the next number of years and forecasts back it up. And I'm not sure you can build jails quick enough to keep up with those people that are, unfortunately, can't stay out of jail. But Sheila said they were, I think it was Sheila, I've talked to some others. But right now, they've got 20 or 25 people in boats just to kind of keep up with the opportunity that's coming in, where they're getting $35 a day. And so far, they haven't turned those people down. But their jail was built 14 years ago, or in 7 years ago, plenty big enough to take care of what the opportunities were, if you call them opportunities, and now it's already not built big enough.
So there's a nationwide movement, and it's, I guess, somewhat of a movement in Kansas for bail reform, where certain segments of the population, they don't deserve or need to be incarcerated. And only reason I mention that is the number of people currently in the Coffee County Jail, in my opinion, they're where they need to be. Bail reform, and I do my best when making bond recommendations to the court to get people who, in my opinion, don't need to be incarcerated out. But there is a segment of the population that they need to have certain bonds, and everybody in jail has a bond. Now, whether they can make that bond or not, and there are certain factors that go into whether a bond is set at a certain level, the seriousness of the crime, their community ties, whether they live in or out of state, and their prior criminal history. And I make bond reduction request arguments all the time. And it's up to the court to make the ultimate decision, but there are a number of people in our jail. And if we could have a empty jail, that would be ideal, but that's not realistic in my opinion, based on what type of alleged crimes are being committed in Coffee County on a regular basis.
Do we want to try to hit another one before the end of the month, looking at the, 29th?
That's our,
I seen you had the calendar out.
yeah, I'm just kind of going through,
There's not a push before November.
No,
So-
so you could do, you could just pick second Thursday of each month or something, and
Yeah,
that's just
well, it'd probably have to be Wednesday, would it not?
I'm just,
What was on a Wednesday?
yeah, last time.
I think that's because of ball games and everything.
Well, Thursday's got a lot of your volleyballs, but that'll be over with here in about it's a third of the season already gone, or it's getting started anyway.
Seemed like.
You know, my thought is, I think we need to continue and be aggressive in promoting the project. The subject that came up the other night is absolute location is truly an issue. It may not be quite the issue as we go out to the other cities that's in our corner. It may not be quite the topic, but to me, that location, we've got to hopefully get a location pinned down.
And then,
In the very near future, before we get overly aggressive.
I feel better knowing the location, nailing that down.
Maybe we ought to set height for a month, and I'm not suggesting, I'm just trying to look at all opportunities.
you don't want to, yeah, and I'll back that up for the end of this month or the beginning of next. I think we probably ought to get a location nailed down. We don't want to do too much early, then turn around and wait, even if it goes to the 2024. Yeah, that'd be, no, 2023, right?
2023.
Unless we hold something special. That's what Osage City's gonna be doing. Osage City,
2022.
they backed all three of theirs on their ballot, and they're gonna have a special election, and the lady I talked to, I'd have to look at my papers. She wasn't sure of the date, and she said, right now, their projected cost to have a special election was $7,000. So, you know, the cost of that, yes, it's 7,000 or 8,000, I don't know what Angie'd say, but for Osage County, they got 90, I forget their population, but you know, the importance of moving ahead and not doing it too quickly, you know, 7,000 to 10,000 for a special election is not that expensive when you're talking about the money we're talking about and for what it will provide for our county. But I think we gotta nail down a location, in my opinion,
And so
before
you
we get too aggressive.
think, in light of all that, you think having that nailed down prior to any special meetings would be
Very,
paramount, or, yeah,
very important.
important?
Me too.
I think,
Your opinion?
Since Don brought up the issue when it was asked Wednesday night, the cost, the Coffee County's worth to have a special election if you get.
In Coffee County, it would cost close to 15,000.
15. She's told me 7 to 8 for their county, and so.
They use different equipment than we do.
So
I didn't figure ours, I didn't know where it would be, Angie, so.
So that's something to take into consideration.
Absolutely.
And it's a question that I had written down from Wednesday night that I'm glad was brought up. And location is paramount. If you don't know where it's gonna be, then I mean, I don't understand how you can, with a straight face, sell it, because people need to know where it would potentially be. It's been a hot topic from the beginning. Those who were concerned about it being south of town and how it would affect how law enforcement would travel through the city of Burlington, how it would affect property at the south end of town. And I think at any other location, whether it be the airport was an issue. Would it be at the north end of the airport? Would it be at the south end of the airport? And you have citizens around in that particular area who had their concerns and what that would look like.
Somebody's gonna be unhappy with no matter where it's at.
Sure, but once you get a location that fits the best and it's a viable option, then that's what you need to move forward with. So right now, don't have that. We have ideas, but ideas don't get anything built. They just are ideas until they become concrete.
Let's see what the other properties are. I mean, like I say, I haven't been told exactly where they're at or whatnot, but just if there are other locations that are more suitable, look at it. And once we get that determined, then we'll move forward with having public meetings.
Do we need to have a vote to take it off the election?
Yes, that would fine. To my knowledge.
I mean, you're.
Correct?
Yes. So you need a motion to rescind your prior motion. I don't remember exactly what the wording was, but
I have.
yes. So there's a motion to rescind the previous motion dated Monday, August 30th, 2021 for the duly registered voters of Coffee County, Kansas to approve the expenditure of 20% of the estimated total cost. Actually, I need to back up. I missed the entire sentence. Motion to rescind the previous motion dated Monday, August 30th, 2021, to place the proposed question on the November 2nd, 2021 city school general election ballot with language referencing the expenditure of 20% of estimated total cost reserve funds with 80% to be placed paid through bond financing for the design, construction, and furnishings of a freestanding 38,000 square foot, 80 bed, up to 80 bed corrections and justice center. And I think that will, that would cover it. It doesn't have everything in the motion, but I think that's enough.
I'll make the motion.
Tim moved,
Second.
Jesse seconded. Any further discussion on this? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0.
Okay. So I'll wait until next week to bring up my other issue.
Okay. We're at round table then. You have anything else you want to share with us?
No.
Angie?
Just a picnic, you'll leave from here, you'll adjourn and leave from here and go down to the Great Building for the employee appreciation picnic. That's all.
Tim?
I think I've talked about everything that I was gonna talk about.
Yes, I believe. I'm good.
I'm good.
Yeah, this last discussion took care of all the topics that I had.
Andrea?
Just a couple little things. I got some information on some of the surrounding counties and area counties on their health officer pay. Osage County pays their county health officer $1,200 annual. Lyon County is $1,000 monthly. Franklin County, while COVID has been taking up some time, they pay theirs $5,000 a month, otherwise no compensation. Lynn County is currently using their nurse practitioner. Their previous person had stepped down, so they increased the nurse practitioner's salary. And there's a multi-county for the southeast Kansas, which includes Allen County, Anderson, Bourbon, and Woodson. So I couldn't get an exact figure because they all pay a portion of that, so I didn't have a figure for that. But that's some of the surrounding salaries for how their health officers paid.
What'd you say Osage County was?
Osage County is $1,200 annually.
$1,200 annually? How about Franklin? You say 5,000 monthly?
$5,000 a month while COVID business has been going on, otherwise no compensation. So they
that's
make
60,000 a year if it's an annual.
if it continued, then they said that they make the determination when they'll end that pay.
Probably never. Well, they'll have to figure something out. It won't go on forever. COVID probably is.
We talk about a wide range, wide range.
1,200 a year to
1,200 a year to 60,000.
60,000.
And you said Allen County, of course, Allen County and Garnett, they're all hooked into St. Luke's.
And they're part of the Southeast Kansas multi-county.
They're part of that.
Something to ponder.
It's hard to even find middle ground on all that.
Anything else?
I just that the insurance adjuster is here to take a look at this batch to say that whether if not, it would even, it was gonna meet our deductible on what would be covered and wouldn't be covered, but due to the pipes, that part wouldn't be covered.
Right.
So basically, the insurance company is not covering anything from the pipe explosion Thursday.
They would cover the cleanup,
The cleanup.
but the cleanup wouldn't meet the deductible. So the part that would be covered would most likely not reach the deductible.
We don't have any billing on that yet.
Not yet. Otherwise, I think that's it.
I don't have anything either. No one else has anything, we will adjourn at 12:09.
Or gonna have a meeting dates, wait to see it, ice and ground down.
With, I think some fairness to do. I think it's important.
We gotta have it tied down.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, all these other options that service distribution.
Maybe Tom can do some more exploring.
Yeah.
Yeah, that location.
It would have worked, but.
You want me pushing buttons over there?
You going down to eat, Andrea?
Yeah, I'll be down there in just a few. Oh, yeah, I forgot.